My husband, who asked me to be a housewife, goes berserk at me for being exactly a housewife. And my mother-in-law keeps pace with him and criticizes me every day. If you are there to show the slightest rebellion, if you can't obey us, get the heck out. At last, I'm left in the middle of nowhere in the dark with nothing but my clothes on. I might not make it. Just when I lose hope, a knight on a white horse appears in front of me. I'm Amelia, a 30-something housewife. I'm now a full-time homemaker, but I used to have a career. My husband Mark and I both worked and shared the chores for a little while after we got married. I decided that I'm not doing any housework from now on. I want you to stay at home and take care of the house. I'll earn enough for us. I resigned from my job at his request. He had never lived alone, so he was not used to doing laundry, cleaning, and cooking. It took him a long time to do those things. Since no one can do everything perfectly from the beginning, I thought he would get used to them slowly. On the contrary, he had given up at once. Although I was anxious about quitting my job, I thought if we had a child, I wouldn't be able to continue working as before. I told myself that the occasion arrived a bit sooner than expected and agreed with Mark. I come home and dinner's ready. It's so nice to come back to a tidy house. In the beginning, he was very appreciative. I was motivated by his happiness and did my best to keep a nice home for him. As time went on, whenever I sat down to take a little break, "Hey, stop slacking off and get to your chores. You haven't finished the dishes yet, have you? The living room is still a mess." He scolded me about cleaning and heating up frozen food isn't cooking. Don't just think about how to be lazy. He started complaining about every single thing. Housewives are so relaxed, aren't they? You take a nap during the day, don't you? Meanwhile, I'm working my butt off. I gotta work tomorrow again. What a pain in the butt. He whined day after day, which got on my nerves. Then I'll quit being a housewife and go back to work. Let's share the chores like before. I proposed to him. I'll never do housework. How dare you talk back to the master of this house? Who do you think is supporting your life? He questioned me illogically. I knew that working could be tough. Just getting to the office every day on the commuter train was hard work. However, being a housewife wasn't easy either. He promised to make more money, so I thought that being married had motivated him. To be honest, nothing had changed. The only difference was the increase in complaints when dinner was too simple or the house was a little messy. It's not a good idea to trust a housewife with the family finances. He even kept all the bank accounts and cash under his control. He complained to me every day, called me incompetent, and told me to obey him. As my life continued, I started to believe that he cared so much about me that he was trying to teach me to be better. He was playing the villain because I couldn't do the housework perfectly. It was all my fault. My thought process became distorted. Looking back, I was completely brainwashed. At that time, I was living in a tiny world, isolated from the outside, and Mark was everything to me. Then one day, I bought an apartment. We are moving next month. As soon as Mark came home from work, he dropped a bombshell. "Excuse me? You bought an apartment without consulting me?" "Why would I do that? I'm the head of the household. and I'm the one who got along. Basically, you're living in my house for free. While I struggled to understand the situation, he continued, my mom will be moving in with us. I was blown away by the nuclear explosion. I could not stand my mother-in-law Beth. She lived far away, so I saw her only a couple of times a year. In those short visits, she tormented me with 4 years' worth of harassment. Whenever we were alone, she even spoke to me in a way that degraded me. I loathed her. Mark told me before we got married, my mom has a harsh tongue. She must be lonely since my dad passed away and doesn't have any bad intentions. You don't have to see her so often. I'm sorry to put you through this. Even after we get married, you don't have to deal with her any more than now. We'll never have to live with her, but I only ask you to visit her with me occasionally. That was why I had been putting up with her for a while. Wait a minute. Didn't you say we'll never have to live with her? I protested, but he was having none of it. Circumstances have changed, so just do as I say. He became furious. I never wished to be a housewife. I became one because he asked me to. I wanted to remind him, but when he raised his voice at me, my body stiffened and I couldn't say anything. Although it was a fact that I became a housewife at his request, I was being supported financially by him. When I thought of that, I couldn't argue with him. I wondered where the sweet guy I had married had gone. The moving day arrived, and I moved to a new apartment unconvincingly. It was a brand new building close to the train station. Beth had already been waiting there. As soon as she saw me, "Oh, Amelia, you're still as gloomy as ever. You're ruining the new apartment." She greeted me with her typical sarcasm. Mark didn't even intervene, but just said, "We're going out for lunch, so you'd better get to unpacking. And you're not allowed to turn on the heater until we come back." They left me with piles of boxes. I shivered in the cold as I frantically unpacked them. Obviously, I couldn't finish within an hour or two while they were out. They saw that the apartment was almost the same as when they left. "You really are useless, aren't you?" It's so frustrating that I have to live with such a clumsy person from now on. They laughed, making fun of me. After that, my life was hell. Beth always criticized everything I did. When I cleaned the room, "You sweep a square room round and round. The corners still got full of dust. That's what happens when you don't pay attention." She then deliberately vacuumed the room again. When I cooked a meal, "Your food is disgusting. I feel sorry for my son who's been forced to eat it. I'll make it again." She threw the food in a bin. When Mark came home, she reported a million lies about me neglecting the housework, how much she'd been struggling, and so on. Amelia threw all her responsibilities to me and did nothing again. Not only that, she complained about my cooking and yelled at me. I was frightened. She acted like a tragic heroine. Her eyes were moist, and she sounded like she was about to cry. Mark believed her lies and got enraged. "What have you done to my mom?" He threw the remote control, which hit the wall and made a dent. "I don't remember saying such a thing to her. It's her who complained about my cooking." I retorted desperately. I was shaking, but I could not remain silent. Liar, she's lying. Beth tearfully pleaded. I know, Mom. He rubbed her back and glared at me. You made her cry. Who do you think is supporting you to be a housewife? I had enough. He grabbed my arm and dragged me out of the apartment. I was wearing my sandals and almost fell being pulled by him. Then he ordered me to get in the car and forced me into the passenger seat. There was Beth with a giddy look in the back seat. He started the car. I asked him where we were headed, which was ignored. We drove through the center and got farther and farther away from the town. We drove for about an hour and came to the densely wooded area in the dark. Suddenly, the car stopped. Get out. What? I couldn't understand what he meant. I'm telling you to get out of the car. Why here? Shut up. If you can't obey us, get lost. Don't come back to us. Don't tell me you're going to leave me in the middle of nowhere at this hour. I desperately grabbed the seatbelt, but he forcefully threw me out of the car. Wait! Don't leave me here. I shouted desperately while they watched me from inside the car with smirks. Then they drove off. I ran after the car frantically, but it was out of sight in no time. It was a pitch-dark dirt road lined by dense forest on either side without street lights, lit only by moonlight. I didn't have my phone with me, so I wanted to get to where there were people quickly. I rushed in the direction I just came from. It was hard to walk with my sandals, which kept slipping off my feet, causing me to trip. It was freezing too. I kept walking, but after several trips and falls, I finally stopped moving. My teeth chattered and my limbs lost sensation. As I sat there at a loss, I saw the lights of a car in the distance. The driver noticed me, sitting by the side of the road. The car stopped and a man came out. Are you okay? Oh my God, look at you. When I looked at myself, my hands and knees were covered in blood. I was suddenly dragged out of the apartment and was wearing sandals and an apron. I explained the situation to him, involuntarily weeping with relief at seeing another person. He covered me with his suit jacket. I'll take you home. Wait, I think you need to go to the hospital first. The complete stranger offered to drive me. Normally, I would be wary of getting into a stranger's car, but I felt like he was sent by God. I didn't want to go back to the apartment. I felt sorry for the man, but I asked him to drive me to my parents in the next town. My parents were shocked to see me suddenly show up in such a state. When I told them what had happened, they cried and asked why I had not come back sooner. They repeatedly promised the man that they would thank him properly at a later date. I was drained of energy and strength, and could not bring myself to contact Mark. I just let myself be taken care of by my parents after that. My dad found a lawyer for the divorce for me, and helped me with other things. I was very grateful. Just as I was thinking that I couldn't keep living under my parents' roof, Mark and Beth showed up. Amelia, are you there? Come out. I got a call from your lawyer. I will never allow you to get a divorce. I heard Mark yelling from outside. I tried to hide, but he kicked the front door and rattled the doorknob with all his might. My dad offered to go out, but I knew I had to do what I had to do. I asked him to call the police if anything and open the front door. As soon as they saw me, "Why didn't you come out sooner instead of keeping us waiting? Apologize and I'll forgive you." "Yes, apologize at once and come back home. Just listen to us from now on." They spat out illogical demands. They made absolutely no sense to me. Why did I need to apologize? I finally woke up from Mark's brainwashing and got a grip on my own life. I wasn't going to let them control me. Why would I apologize to you guys? You told me not to come back and dumped me like a piece of trash in the middle of nowhere. I'm doing exactly what you wanted me to do. Please leave. They probably didn't expect me to talk back and were taken aback by my defiant attitude. Moments later, their faces quickly turned bright red, and they began yelling at me. "Who do you think you're speaking to? I'm your husband." "That's right. You're being supported by him. You should know your place." The two of them started having fits, and it was pointless to argue with illogical people. Just as I was thinking about what to do, someone tapped my shoulder from behind. "What are you all yelling about?" Ryan, the man who had rescued me the other day, was standing behind me. He was invited to a thank you dinner at my house. "Don't disturb the neighbors." He came out to the porch. "Mark, what are you doing here?" I was surprised that he knew my husband, who was even more surprised than I was. "Why are you here?" He stared at Ryan with wide eyes. "Wait, he's from your office, isn't he? He's your boss." Beth looked at him with disbelief. I was wondering what jerk could leave a woman behind in the middle of nowhere at night, but it was you." He looked at Mark knowingly. "That was just a joke, you know. That was in no way a joke." His scolding silenced both of them. They were arrogant to those who were in a weaker position, but meek to those who were stronger. If it was his boss, they would be even more vulnerable. If there was a wrong person or no one passed by, her life was in danger. What were you thinking leaving her there in the dark? Well, she was giving us hard times, so it was more of a discipline or an expression of love. He was dripping sweat down his forehead and was struggling to make excuses. Ryan stared at him in disgust and sighed loudly. "I see, that's enough." When he said that, Mark and Beth seemed to be relieved and gathered themselves to leave. "Well, then..." As they turned away, he coldly put a nail in the coffin. "Your attitude at work has been unacceptable. In addition to that, this incident has happened. We can't have someone like you in our company." "What do you mean?" "You don't have to come to work anymore." Mark's cheek twitched as he yelled. "This is BS. I thought it was strange that my boss was at your house. You've been cheating on me with him, haven't you? You two are in on this together." "Must be. Sneaking around to meet up is called cheating. You owe us alimony." My blood boiled up when I heard them forcefully accusing Ryan. Enough. Who in the right mind brings a cheating partner to the parents' house? "You guys are disturbing the peace in my neighborhood. Get lost." I shouted with a grimace I had never shown before, which worked on them. They spat out, "Don't you forget this," and left. I didn't need to be told that. I wasn't going to forget the way they abused me, and the distorted grins they looked down at me with. I was going to remember it all for sure. "Wow, what a rumbling voice. You did it." He cracked up, clapping his hands. I smiled shyly with a mixture of embarrassment and happiness, an indescribable emotion. We have kept in touch since then. Mark never had to report to work and left the company voluntarily without giving notice. His professional field is relatively small. Rumors quickly spread that he's the kind of guy who abandons his wife in the middle of nowhere, and he's struggling to find a new job. He bought a new apartment to live in with his mom, but he was behind in his loan repayments and had to put it on the market. They are now living in a downgraded apartment together. I guess it was impossible for me to enter into their lives as a daughter-in-law, as they seem to trust only themselves. I'm in the process to get divorced now and living alone near my parents. Today, Ryan is coming over for the first time. I don't know what he saw in me, but he asked me out sincerely. I was attracted to him and decided to take a chance. While I'm cooking his requested beef stew, I'm excited looking forward to having him over.